Becoming a successful professional speaker is a journey. How do you find that first stage, the next stage, and then the bigger and better stages? I'm Lee Hayes, your host. My co-hosts and I are here to guide you to a more successful speaking career. You're listening to Path to the Main Stage podcast. Hey everybody, welcome to another Path to the Main Stage podcast, where I love to bring you experts to both bust myths about the speaking industry and then bring us the facts about how you can be a better, more successful speaker. So today my co-host is Liz Lathan, who is a certified meeting planner. She is the co-founder of Club Ichi, which is a private membership group for B2B event marketers. And she's been around a couple of decades in the global events market, marketing events, building events. She understands, trade shows, conferences, business events. She's worked for IBM. She's worked for Dell. So she's bringing a boatload of experience, and hopefully is going to give us a little information you need today. So thank you so much, Liz, for joining. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me here. I'm super excited for this.
Fantastic. So I want to hear first a little bit about Club Ichi and the people who are in there, because I think they're all experts. And I just want to give a feel for what you do with most of your time in that space.
Yeah, well, we like to use the tagline that we're a social club for people in events who do cool and like to talk about it. So our membership is actually about 40% of those in-house corporate and association event professionals, mostly corporate. 30% are the freelancers, solopreneurs that are doing events for other folks. Most of them used to be corporate and either by choice or by force are now freelancing or running their own thing. And then about 30% are the agencies, suppliers, and everyone from photo booths to DJs to big agencies, and some keynote speakers in there. So I can definitely speak to what they're finding and how they're getting business and how that's working.
Awesome. And I know you've been on stage yourself, right? That you've worked as a speaker.
I have. I don't traditionally go as like that keynote speaker or anything like that. We generally do something called a spontaneous think tank where we get the room involved in things. But yes, I have been on a stage or two.
Wonderful. All right. I'm going to start with the big question, and then we're going to start breaking it down. And that is, if I'm an emerging speaker and I now join MPI, Meeting Professionals International, will that send my career into the stratosphere that now I've met all the people I need to meet and I'm going to get speaking jobs?
I would say, welcome to the room of 15,000 people. Good luck. You got a lot of people in there. There's a lot of people in there, and there are a lot of really, really good people in there. But in order to find the right people, this is the challenge. I think what you find across the event industry, there are a number of organizations, associations, PCMA, SEMA, SITE, IRF, MPI, ILEA, the Club Ichi, the list goes on, right? But the challenge with event professionals is that there's really no one definition of an event professional. So we could be doing anything from behind the scenes production work, doing show calling and having nothing to do with the content on stage, all the way to being the global event head of events and field marketing who is driving a portfolio of events across the country and a team of 12 executing all the things, to the head of conferences and education at an association who is choosing speakers, who is deciding who's going to go on stage. So sifting through that is a needle in the haystack. So I would say you can join the organizations, but don't do it until you really figure out who your ICP is, who your ideal client is, who's the one booking the talent. Then find the organization. So we can talk through that today.
Wonderful. So you just mentioned how many things event planners do, how broad that topic is. Can you just take a few minutes to break that down and give me some of the components of event planning?
How long's the podcast?
Yeah. Well, I think today's going to be about 4 hours and 5 minutes, I think. But no, if we could just, now I'm going to say, now obviously many events are business, but I definitely want to limit to that. So for example, we're not going to talk about, home shows today or things for individual goals, but just businesses. Yeah, if you can start giving me the broad breakdown of the components, what goes into planning an event.
So I want to take just the B2B business environment. So let's look at a conference. Keynote, breakouts, expo, concert. Those are the core components of any conference. right? You may have something that's considered an industry trade show, which often has education associated with it, and it may be main stages, ancillary stages. They could be in the expo hall, or they could be in that conference plus trade show creation kind of module. You may have trade shows themselves where a company has a booth in a larger trade show and they have their own stage inside their own booth. So you can bring speakers into that. Then you have the internal events. You have sales kickoffs where all the sales teams come together at the beginning of the year to get them educated, inspired, and motivated on what the year is going to drive ahead. You have leadership meetings that may happen quarterly or throughout the year where the executive teams are going to get together. They also have main stage or breakout opportunities. You will find that in a lot of the organizations that are driving events, breakout sessions are not the paying ones. So if you're in the speaking biz, in order for that to be your actual full-time job, it's rare that you're going to get paid to be in a breakout room. Oftentimes those come from sponsored sessions, those come from call for papers, they come from the education side of things if people are getting certifications and things. It's more of those main stages or super stages or some of the other kind of talent stages where you're going to find funding.
And you just mentioned call for papers. Can you tell us a little bit, what is call for papers or call for speakers? How does that work?
Yeah, those oftentimes come from an association side, and they will put out the call for papers or call for speakers where you can submit, usually aligning with one of their core topics that they've set for the conference. So you will submit your abstract, submit what you hope that the attendees will learn from you, a little bit of your background, maybe a sizzle reel, and it generally goes to some sort of content or education committee. Maybe it goes to a leadership team if it's an actual corporate event, and they're going to sift through those things and try to align them with what they know the attendees want to hear. Sometimes it's a political game and you don't get chosen because the board members win the spots or something like that. You never really know what you're walking into. But again, oftentimes those are people volunteering their time and expertise in order to get selected, usually because they want to amplify their own eminence with a speaking position, but they're willing to pay their own way. They're willing to maybe even buy a conference pass in order to get there. So they're investing in that opportunity. Whereas more of a keynote spot or a super session or a smaller stage inside an expo or something like that may be a content coordinator or education manager trying to find the right talent to be on that stage, and that's when they would look for independent speakers they found, go through speakers bureaus or network to find the right speaker.
And how does that search often take place? You just mentioned bureaus are independent. If you, were looking, or you knew somebody who was looking for speakers for, like you said, the super stages or keynote, how does that process work? How do you start looking?
Yeah, it's really interesting. It kind of depends on who you're asking and what level speaker you're looking for. If you're going for, I got a $400,000 budget to bring Bill Clinton on stage, that's going to be a very different type of speaker bureau than I've got $10,000. I need someone who's a leadership speaker. Maybe they've got a book that we've maybe heard of or that we could buy and give to the audience. That might be a different speakers bureau. So I think, again, knowing where you are in the speaking market, are you just starting out and you're willing to speak for $2,500? Or are you relatively established and you're more in the $10,000, $50,000, $75,000 range in which you can actually have a bureau that's advocating for you? So bureaus are one way. A lot of it is either word of mouth or seeing the speaker on stage. I know a lot of speakers tell me all the time, I get booked more when I speak because people see me and come running up afterwards and go, oh my God, I need you for my sales conference, or you would be so great for our leadership meeting. So speaking more, that's why the opportunity for you, I think everybody hates the idea of will you speak for exposure, right? Because exposure does not pay the rent, but there are times when you're first starting out that it might make sense for you to be in that room and speak for exposure. So it's something to consider if you're an early or new speaker. If you can just get your travel paid for, you can get your conference fee paid for and get the opportunity to be on stage, get photos, videos, and be in front of a room so that you're getting that experience too, that might be worth investing in. But once you're an established speaker, then you're on stage and people will find you. The other way is word of mouth. This is where those MPIs and SEMAs and Club Ichis come into play. People do ask for recommendations, and they will. We have a Slack channel in Club Ichi, and we do see it all the time. Like, hey guys, who are your top leadership speakers these days for your sales kickoffs? And people will drop in names and drop in LinkedIn's and sizzle reels for folks. So being known is helpful. So to your original question of does it help if you join the organizations, it can. If you can make yourself known, if you can make yourself available. We have had that opportunity inside Club Ichi of speakers coming in and offering to teach a class to our community. So they can do, a little snippet of their keynote in workshop format, and we'll do a virtual class, and maybe we get 15, 20 people to come join the class, but that's more people that have now heard of this person and are more likely to go recommend them when they start hearing the requests.
I love the way you said speak for exposure, because one thing I always say is never speak for free, but do speak for value. And exposure is definitely value, right? Because people say, some event planners will go, well, just would you do it for free? And it's like, no, there has to be an exchange of something, right? I'm bringing my talent, my expertise. What are you giving me? And sometimes it is a room full of event planners or media or, I always bring up poor Damon John. I talk about him all the time, but I know he'll speak for exposure. Now, granted, when he speaks for exposure, it might be Entrepreneur Magazine who's doing a feature article on him, but he values getting out there because every time he gets out there, he gets hired again.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
so,
And don't think that just that room is all you can ask for. You can ask to have a dedicated email blast sent out. You can ask for the ability to sell books and do a book signing. You can ask if they have a sponsor that would buy the books for everyone in the room, and you'd speak for free, because maybe there's another way that you can either get money from the books, or that's like your physical business card, right? Now all these people have the book, and then you've got a little speaker plaque inside that says how they can get you. So definitely push on that and see what else you can do.
now we talked, you mentioned that there are some planners who do select speakers. But I know in some cases, the meeting planner is just told this is the person who's going to speak. So are there certain events where planners are more involved in the speaking process versus events where, like, the CEO or president of the association just says, here's who I want?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm not sure that there are any that are truly like, this is the group of people that only books the speakers. Because even when you can find a community of the event content people, which does exist, there's a company called Session Board that does call for papers, software, technology, and they've started to pull together a little community of event content professionals. Even then, it's not always those folks that are choosing the speaker. What happens is the CEO or the director or the leader is choosing what the content tenets are going to be. They have some speakers in mind, and then that content person has to bring that stage to life. So finding those people is truly, truly, like I said, a needle in a haystack. But understanding the levels. So there's a coordinator level who is going to be purely logistics. This person is being told what to do, and they're going to do it. You have a manager level who also could be in the room for these conversations, may have influence in these conversations, but is probably not the core decision maker. Then you get to that director or senior director or vice president role, where oftentimes they definitely have influence, they can definitely bring ideas, but depending on how the organization is structured, it is usually a marketing person setting the content, or if it's a sales kickoff, maybe it's HR, maybe it's the sales leaders who are setting the direction they want to go in. And then it comes down to kind of people bringing their ideas together and taking a look at the speakers. Sometimes a speaker can get access into a Vistage group full of CEOs, or one of these other organizations where the CEO comes back to the marketing team and says, I heard this guy, hire him. So those things do happen, and I don't want to say that every single lead you're going to get has to be serendipitous, but you do have to keep your eyes and ears open to that and start to have qualifying conversations with people and just find out, hey, I see that you're a conference manager. Who chooses the content for your main stages? Because if it's an association, it could be a content committee or an education committee, and it's not the meeting professional at all. But the meeting professional has influence to come in and say, I was just at a speaker showcase hosted in my town, and these three would be really great to consider, and can take those to the committee. So having the relationships definitely does help.
So tell me a little bit about speaker showcases. Who hosts those? How do they work?
Oftentimes it is a bureau or an independent speaker representative that will host those. So I'm actually working with someone in Austin, Texas to put one together in July, because here's the biggest challenge. We as event planners used to go to our industry conferences to look for speakers that we could recommend in our own companies. But more and more, what we're seeing is that the speakers they're putting on the main stages are those really big Brene Browns, people that you actually can't afford as an event professional. So great to hear them, but like, I don't have that kind of budget. And so we're not finding those speakers anymore. So it's become harder and harder to actually identify them. And so I've started working with some of the speaker organizations to see, can we create these speaker showcases where you bring in 5, 6 of your speakers and let them do a showcase, that we have the opportunity to meet them, to hear what they're all about, to see them on stage, and then to take that back to our groups.
And is there a difference between, well, there is a difference, but how does a corporate event run? Like you worked for Dell and they would run their own events versus you had mentioned association events. What's the difference between those?
So in the corporate events, again, we had all sorts. We had our conferences, our large, when I was at Dell, it was Dell World. So we had the main one, the big main stage. We didn't often hire in somebody from the outside. It generally was one of our C-suites contacts that we would bring in. So one year we had all the CEOs of all the other companies, Microsoft and VMware, and all those folks were on stage. But another year we hired Bill Clinton, and one year we hired the Freakonomics guys. And so those were kind of the main stage mega. You have 6,000 people in the room, so you're doing that for the draw, and that is the intent. But then we did those super sessions, which were the smaller stage sessions around the expo hall or in smaller ballrooms. So they didn't have all 6,000 people in them, but they did have paid speakers, whether it was on a leadership topic or it was specific within the technology vertical, bringing somebody in influential in that vertical. And I know a lot of speakers do that. They focus on maybe AI or something like that so that you can bring people in. Then we had our own executive summit. So it was a smaller, couple hundred people type of event where, again, we would bring in more of a business professional, business coach, somebody maybe well known, maybe the Damon Johnson of the world, right, to come in and have that bit of the conversation. I think that in the corporate side, that's the conference world, but then we also had our sales kickoff. And so same thing, the main stage was often run by the business unit presidents. It really all about your setting up the inspiration and the motivation and getting people set. And so maybe you do bring in some outside sales coach type person to be on stage for a few moments to really get the team fired up. But then each of the business units would have their own little arm of the conference, kind of a micro event for their region or for their business unit. And they also can bring in their motivational speakers to get their team fired up. Or maybe their team's having a communication issue and they want to bring in a speaker that's going to help people work through omni-channel stakeholder matrix organization, and how are you going to communicate better. So understanding what the corporate problems are and where you fit is absolutely essential. I think you do have to, the niches are where the rich, or what is it? The riches are in the niches, I think is the statement, right? So that's the thing of like knowing what your topic is and not just being like, oh, I'm a leadership speaker. Like, okay.
Oh, it's important to be specific then.
Right.
Okay.
If you can say, I help SaaS teams go from a scrappy startup to $1 billion enterprise and lead through it. Like when you have that story of like, oh, okay, now you've got all the young up and coming newly funded SaaS companies that are like, oh my gosh, have you heard Bob speak? He came in and changed our sales team, right? So I think that there's opportunity there. Now on the association side, a lot of times they are looking for, I would say like settling speakers. So like an economist, a futurist, somebody that's going to take this industry, because the associations tend to be industry focused, right? So whether it's a real estate industry or I used to work for a property tax professional association. And in that situation, we're looking for economic forecasts around land, and we're looking for how are things changing and growing, and finding some speakers around those things. So they will be industry specific, but broad enough to bring in some of that future state conversation. They're not so much looking for motivation. They're really looking for where's this industry going, and that can be really helpful.
So how important is it to have a website that indicates your niche, right? Your niche. Because when I say that, what I mean is some speakers I've seen, I'll go to their website and they'll be like, my brand is blue, and they'll have blue with blue pictures or whatnot. But I think it doesn't say I'm a futurist. It doesn't say I'm SaaS is my market. How important when you, like, if you're looking for a speaker or you're confirming a speaker, when you go to their website, that you look at the website and say, yes, I can see that this person's either in our industry or speaks to me. Like, how important, I know this is a very wordy question, but how important is it that you can see, you can understand what the speaker stands for in that website? Or do you go, it just has to be pretty, and then I'll watch videos?
No, you as a speaker, you're a product. So I'm trying to find product market fit, and you're trying to find product market fit. Like, I know what product I need on my stage, and I'm going to go shopping for that product. If I'm looking for a leadership speaker, there's probably something going on in my organization, because I either want people to lead better, I want people to lead nicer, I want people to, lead a different way. There's a change that needs to happen. So if I go to your website and see that you have a background as a leader and your website is beautiful, I go, cool. But if I go to your website and I see that you help organizations do this kind of change, I'm like, that's the change that I am looking for, and that's going to lead me to a conversation.
How important to you is, and sort of rank these, videos of speakers on stage versus sizzle reels, right? Where you get the music and the books and the excitement, versus testimonials?
The testimonials are great. I'm fine with written testimonials. I don't need video testimonials or anything like that. Just a little bit of credibility of the types of organizations you've spoken to. Have you done corporate? Have you done association? Have you done anything in my industry? The sizzle reel versus speaker reel. The sizzle reel is great because it tends to put a bunch of speaker reels together, and I think that's cool because that gives some variety, but it can cost a lot to produce. So just snippets from stages you've been on. When you are negotiating your speaker fee or your speaker in kind, whatever you're doing, make sure you negotiate in either the ability for you to bring your own iPhone or whatever and set it up there so you can capture it, or to get access to recordings if they're already recording it.
Yeah, no, that's a great piece of advice, because video. It's interesting. I was talking to a speaker the other day who said, oh, he doesn't want to put too much video out there because then they've seen him already.
Yes, but 99% of the speakers have a YouTube channel, so I've seen them too. So the difference is, what are you going to do on stage? How does it relate to my audience? And how are you going to make it different than what I saw on YouTube? Because if I just flew to an event and it was the same thing I could have watched on YouTube, then why did I buy an airplane ticket? So that is definitely on the speaker, but the speaker needs to be able to say, this is what I talk about, and then when I get into the room, this is what we do together.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. And how important, or when is celebrity important? Like you mentioned, we had Bill Clinton. Why do events look for famous names, and why or when do they look for content? Sort of what's the payoff between celebrity versus content? And some people bring both, but often there are speakers, right, who you've heard of them and they sit there and they look pretty, or you ask a few questions. And then there are people who have great content but don't have great celebrity. So why would an event bring in one or the other?
Well, listen, the industry research, I think Freeman produced it, showed that people are less swayed to purchase tickets because of a celebrity than they are from actual content. So the hiring a celebrity thing is working less and less and less. So don't really worry about that too much. However, the reason you hire a celebrity is because you think it's going to work. You're going to put this face up there. You're going to say, we got this crazy, amazing person. And you think that people will be like, I am going to buy that ticket to get in the room with that person. The way that the way that attendees are actually viewing it is, well, I was thinking of going to that event anyway. I've always wanted to hear that speaker, but I was probably going to buy it. And yes, I'll be in the room. So it's not converting them to buy the ticket, but it is another proof point that the organization is stable enough to bring in someone of that caliber and who cost that much. But I wouldn't say that it's driving any actual registrations on its own. Any of these organizations that are bringing in a celebrity probably could have driven the same number of attendees if they didn't put that person on stage. So oftentimes it's a what I like to call ROE, which is return on ego. And that is the main leader in the organization really wanted to have a fireside chat with that person.
Oh my goodness, that is fabulous. That is, I've never heard it mentioned that way. That is fantastic. I love it. Return on ego, because yes, I've had that happen many times where an event will hire a speaker, and the event planner goes, "Yeah, that's who the CEO wanted. That's who they wanted to talk to." So even if it has nothing to do with the rest of the audience.
Now, when you talk about when is content important, though, I was at a Fast Company Impact Council event, and they had Michelle Pfeiffer up on stage, and I was just like, seriously, like, what are we doing? Like, you really just think that I got to show up and listen to Michelle Pfeiffer? However, she had launched a perfume brand, and the conversation was all about her fumbling into the business and the fashion industry, the perfume industry, what she had to go through, the reason that she wanted to create it, because she had health issues and every perfume she used caused skin rashes, and how they went through this whole process. And it was a really interesting, fascinating conversation that changed the way I thought of her. And then it made me think of perfumes completely differently. I don't really wear perfume, and I'd never really thought about all the things that go into it. So the content value actually was there, and it kind of reversed my thought of the celebrity in her particular instance. So you can't hit both parts. But I've also heard of one that was another celebrity that a large tech company brought on stage for a fireside chat, and it was the feedback online was like, why? What did they pay that guy? He looked like he just rolled out of bed and showed up on stage. He added no value. Why was he there? I felt bad for the CMO who moderated. So it can backfire if you don't get the right person with the right content.
I have heard that, and that's where we can't mention any names, but yeah, no, I have heard of disastrous events where celebrities, and when we're talking dollars here, I mean, we can be talking $500,000 and up.
Right. Oh, for sure.
For these things. And again, you're saying people hope you buy tickets, but I hope there's a finance person going, how many tickets do we need to sell to cover $500,000 and then be profitable?
Right.
But I know some celebrity helps, right? I often hear when I pitch a speaker, they'll say, but I haven't heard of them. How can speakers get heard of? What do you recommend? Podcasts, articles, getting out there, social media? What catches your attention?
Yeah, unfortunately, all of those things. And it's not your job to be a content machine. I get that. But at the same time, being found is important. And I also think that having your name spoken in a room is important. So I think at least having a social media presence, it doesn't mean that you got to be Alex Hormozy and pay a content team $200,000 a month to pump out your stuff all the time. But getting some stuff out there that is your perspective and your point of view, so that when I do come across you, or when I'm looking at your speaker page and I check out your Instagram or YouTube or whatever platform you choose, I see your gravitas and your credibility and the types of things you bring to life and how you relate to a camera, and I can associate that with how you'll relate to my audience. And if maybe I'm doing a virtual event and I want to be able to see that you can hold an audience's attention through the screen. So I think that those things are important. As far as, how do you become a celebrity? I don't think it's necessary. I think you need to become the subject matter expert that people want. Now, is a book important? Those authority builders, I think, are something that a lot of people care about, a lot of people like. It is nice to have a book to purchase, but if you're just going to have AI write it and then you're just going to send it to a publisher, please don't bother. I'd rather you have a small little pamphlet that acts as a book, or even, heck, I wrote a book. It's called, what's it called? I don't remember what it's called. It's on Amazon Kindle, and it's called Eyebrows Up. And it's all about, how the first time you see a baby, you immediately lift your eyebrows like that, and the baby smiles back at you. And so for us, it's a book about hospitality and how when you first meet someone, you do eyebrows up. And it's like, you greet them this way, and it changes the energy in the room and how we do it. So I wrote a book. It's on Kindle. it's not a physical book and you would never print it, but I can still call myself an author. Honestly, for what you're going to tell people, that's good enough. You can give them access to the 99-cent Kindle thing. It's just for them to know that you've got enough content that you could craft something is useful. But maybe you're a writer on Medium or Substack or something like that, and you're growing an audience that way, and you've got a blog, whatever it is. It's kind of like build your content strategy around that and then use that to produce the authority that you might want to back up your presentations.
Now, you already answered a little bit of this question that I was going to ask, and that was, do you put out a crap book? Can that be harmful for you?
That is
Well, great, because you said if AI is just going to write like, don't bother, can that actually be harmful to your brand?
Absolutely. Yeah, I had a friend write a book because she wants to get on the speaking stage, and I was super excited about it because she's freaking brilliant. And I got the book, and I was like, oh my God, I got the book. And then I read it, and I was like,
this is garbage.
I could not make it past chapter 2. It was literally like ChatGPT spit the thing out. The editor changed a few words, and then they will send it to publishing. And I was like, you can't give this to anyone. This is awful. I wish I'd had an advanced copy so I could just rewrite it for you, you know? Don't do that. It doesn't, even if the concepts are sound, I mean, let's be honest, Claude, ChatGPT, they're all doing a really great job of creating concepts and like taking your raw ideas and turning them into words for you. That's fine, but you need to hire a rewriter, an editor, somebody if you're going to craft something. This weekend, I spent time with a guy who's a keynote speaker, and he has a book as well. He wrote it himself, and he told me, he was like, look, straight up, I have a book and it's okay. It gets my concepts across. It allows me to say, I have a book, and I can put it on the site, and I can say that I'm an author, and it makes me feel good to have it. Did it change my speaking career? Truly don't know. I truly can't say whether or not that book had any impact, but it made me feel good, and so I'm glad I did it. And so I was like, okay, I mean, I think that's totally fair. If it's something that helps you have more confidence in saying, I'm a keynote speaker and I wrote a book, great, do it. Just make sure that someone did read it first.
So true. But I mean, books can, right, create careers. You have Will Guidara, right, Unreasonable Hospitality. You got Simon Sinek, Start with Why. And it's interesting because I just listened to Will's book this past week.
Great book.
And one thing he talked about is he put 3 years into that book, like of a lot of time and a lot of effort and people and rewrites and all this. And then you sell 3 million copies. So going all in matters if that's what you really want. But like you said, even if you just put a pamphlet together that has really good concepts, I think that matters. Yeah, having an AI, because people have said it to me, oh, I can just AI a book. Please don't, because you know what? It sounds like an AI book.
Absolutely. So I got kind of cold DM'd this thing from a lady who was like, the kind of book you need if you don't want to write a book. And she was like, fill out the little form, pay me the $1.50, and I'll send you the book that you need. And I was like, that's fascinating. So I did the thing, and I paid the $1.50 or whatever it was, and I got it. And I wish I had it here. I think it's at home. It's so for those of you that are listening, I'm just holding up my hand. It was probably 5 inches by 4 inches. It was this teeny tiny little, like almost someone had gone to FedEx and made a pamphlet thing that was stapled, but it was actually like nicely designed. It was not beautifully bound, but then the content inside it was legitimately good. And it was like, wow, why the book you think you need might not be the book you think you need. And over the course of maybe 24 pages, it told the story of how an authority amplifier maybe doesn't need to be 400 pages of crap. And I was like, this chick's amazing. And it made me go look her up, see if she did any speaking, and see if she'd be relevant to something like that. So I think that you can get creative with what your authority amplifier is.
You know, there are many ways to do it, but you, like you said, it has to be creative. It has to be outstanding. It has to be eye-catching. Wonderful. All right. So let me ask you, this is how I wrap all my podcasts. You have been in the industry now for, you said, over 2 decades. You don't look it. I don't know how you're pulling that off. Anyway, but if you were going to go back to the beginning of your industry, and of course, thinking of speakers, thinking of event planning, what one piece of advice would you give yourself starting out? What one thing would you say, you know what, focus on this first, like this matters, and you didn't know it then, but you know it now.
Specifically related to speakers, or do you want to hone me in a
Speakers
little?
or the industry where speakers are related. So it could also be event management or planning or whatnot. But what did you say you learned about your industry
Yeah,
that if you wish you'd known it then?
honestly, early on, I probably would have worked a little harder within my organizations to figure out who does pick the speakers. Because I kind of grew up at SEMA, which is the Corporate Event Marketing Association, and they used to have a speakers bureau that would sponsor all their keynote speakers, and they would bring in all these great, like Molly Fletcher, and they like the dude that wrote Never Eat Alone, was the CMO of Weston. Keith Ferrari, whatever. So all these like great speakers that they would come in, and I was like fascinated by them, taking all these notes, and they're inspirational and they're polished on stage and they're definitely expensive, and like really good ones. And I learn a lot from them. And then I go back to my day job, which was managing trade show booths. It wasn't relevant to me. I didn't do anything with it. I didn't learn anything about how they got on stages or anything like that. And so I think that for me as an event professional, I should have explored more earlier on these guys are great. How do we use them? How do we leverage them? Who do I need to introduce them to in order to get them on our stages because they were so good? But when I was super young and new in the industry, I didn't think I had that kind of power or influence. And when I heard a great speaker, I didn't think I had anything to do with that. And so I think learning that early on, that you do have influence, even if you're just a coordinator level, and that you can come back from a conference you've been to and say, listen, there was this leadership speaker on stage that talked about networking and setting yourself up as a product, and I really think that would help our sales teams. Do that. So if you're on the event side of things, any speaker you see at a conference, whether they're in a breakout room or on a main stage, make note of it. Take a picture of that QR code they're going to put up at the end. Like get their information
Get the
and
notes.
bring
Yep.
it back to your team for sure. I think that that's really important. And then from the speaker side, making sure that the speaker does do that. Like, you make that last slide your QR code. Make that last slide the memorable URL that people are going to walk away with, and make sure that people do know how to contact you. And don't just leave. That's the thing I hate the most about the speakers that get paid, that they come into the event, they go to the green room, they get up on stage, they do their thing, and then peace out. And you never get a chance to even catch them or find them or talk to them. The speakers that come to the reception the night before, that go to the event to, and start learning about the people in the room before they get on stage, so that they get a feel for the audience and they get a feel for what the challenges are. They're able to tie that to their presentation and then allow people to come up to them afterwards and tell them how much it impacted them. I think those are the speakers that really resonate.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today. And I think that last little piece was a great piece of wisdom, that you have to connect with people and believe in yourself and get your name out there. So thank you so much. And to everyone out there, I'll see you on the next Path to the Main Stage podcast. Thanks for listening to Path to the Main Stage. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And for full video episodes, check out YouTube. If you want to be a successful speaker, you need to make it happen. My co-hosts and I are here to help guide you. But if you need more help, please check out pathtothemainstage.com, where we can connect. And until next time, keep sharing your voice, keep showing up, and keep taking your path to the main stage.